In the last session, we spoke about how do we assess an opportunity, and we discussed about techniques to ask open-ended questions to understand the context in which the user is will be using this product, and how he is currently addressing the challenges that are there that we assume are challenges. So instead of directly asking question like, would you like to buy this product? We need to understand and discover rather than ask a direct question. That is one of the main things we talked about. And in the process, even if the product may not be of interest to the interviewee, we could get enough or important information about alternate segments who may be interested in this product. And even the product features and functionality could also get changed based on that interaction. So it's a very important step before we get into more detailed product development. Then we talked about creating a business plan, how to think about the product as a whole, not just about the product features, but also about how are you planning to reach out to the target market, what is the costs involved, and what is the expected revenue. So all these things we talked about. And then we talked about creating a story map to capture the various functionality and features of the product. We talked about the Kano model, which helps us to classify the requirements into must-have requirement, wanted requirement, and delighted requirements. Okay. Today we are going to look at how do we create a minimum viable product, a product with minimum features and yet something that will deliver significant value to the client or the customer, which will again be used to test or validate the product with real customers. And only then we normally get into more detailed functionality. So that is what we're going to see today, the minimum viable product. And then we'll talk about how we go into multiple iterations before we actually stabilize a product. And then we'll look at some of the ways in which we can scientifically do this iteration by measuring certain key metrics to determine the value the product is providing to the customer. And by measuring and monitoring these metrics, we will know whether we are in the right direction or we need to change the product functionality or product offering. Then we look at a couple of case studies which demonstrate this aspect of iteration and modifying the product, and it's called as pivoting, P-I-V-O-T, pivot. And we'll see some examples of that. And finally, we'll take an end-to-end case study right from the beginning to the end of a product. Not really the end, but a mature stage of the product. So before we venture into these topics, one topic is that what are the different risks that are involved in a product development? Okay, so because these are the things we need to evaluate as we go along. Some of the risks will be clear in the beginning, but some of them may evolve over a period of time. But the idea is to understand in this session what are the different types of risks and what are the possible mitigation plans that could be there. Okay. We'll start with that topic and then move further into others. There are 4 types of risks involved in any in a product. First, in a software product especially. First is the value risk, which is whether this product has a compelling value to the target audience. Okay. Second is usability risk, because many of the products fail because they do not have a easy to use user interface, and that could be a risk factor. And the third is the feasibility risk. While we may have a great product idea which will provide excellent value, are we capable of delivering that value, and are we technically capable of doing that? This becomes very critical in products that use latest technology like artificial intelligence or robotics or drones and things like that, because everyone may not have the technical strength to do that particular product. And the fourth is the business viability risk. Now, it should also make business sense. Can we survive with the kind of customer base we have? Can we make enough money? Is our organization equipped or ready to take on this marketing and support and sales of this particular product? Those are some of the factors that we need to look at. So let's take a little bit of a deep dive into this. So here are the risks, key value risk, like will the customer buy this or choose to use it? Can the user figure out how to use it? That is usability risk. Can we build it? That is a feasibility risk. And does the solution work for our business? Okay. The four risks that we talked about. So the first and most important thing is the value. So we have to, as a product developer or a product manager, it's very critical that first and foremost it should have significant value, should have a compelling value. And no matter how good the user interface is and performance is and reliability is, if there is no value or there isn't much value, it may not succeed. Okay, that's very important. So among the four risks, this is the most critical risk that we have. So this, I think we have seen that we need to identify if it is a B2B product, then Marty Kagan says that about 6 customers is good enough. But if it is a B2C product, it's a large volume product, then probably we need a much higher number of customers to test the value. So maybe it may run in the order of, say, about 100 or so. So we need to test the idea with at least 6 customers. And then, if we can't get even 4 or 5, then probably we are chasing a wrong problem. And I think we saw this concept earlier also. And especially in case of a B2B product, it is important to explain that we are trying to build a product which is useful to many customers and not a custom solution. So this expectation should be set right in the beginning with those potential pilot customers. And then explain that you will deep dive in the problem and build a single solution that works well for 6 customers. So it's a common solution. And we also need to sort of emphasize the point that you will need regular interaction with them at various stages, either to understand the product features needed or to test the product and so on. Okay, so this is very important. Now, when we test the value of the product, there are 2 types of values. There are 2 types of testing. One is called the qualitative testing. It is more like how the customer responds to the product. So as I was saying, there are 2 types of testing. One is the qualitative testing, which is more about how the person reacts, the customer reacts, how does he respond when you show the product or discuss the product. And second is a quantitative testing. That is, what is the volume of people who are showing interest in the product. Okay. So both these are important. So qualitative testing is focused on the response. It should answer questions like, do customers love this product? Will they pay for it? Will users choose to use this? And if they are saying that we are not interested in the product, why are they saying it's not important? I mean, why are they saying that they will not use it? Because then it will give us a clue as to what changes need to be made. Are they willing to recommend? This is a very, very important thing, that the true test of a product liked by a customer is that he's willing to recommend this product to his friends or relatives. Okay, so if this happens, then this is that means the product is really having value. Okay, are they willing to spend significant time to work with you to develop the product? So as we were discussing the previous slide, that when we talk to identify 5 or 6 customers who are willing to work with us, willing to invest the time needed, that means there's a significant value they're going to get, and therefore they are willing to spend the time or invest the time. So that's also an indication of value the product is bringing or will bring to the customers. Now, coming to quantitative testing, it's more volume based, so that we know that how big is the market of the interested people. So this one gives you that whether it's of interest or not. This one tells you how many of the people are really interested in the target segment. Okay. So what are the techniques to do the quantity testing? One is landing page technique, or it's called the fake door technique. So what you do is you can create the main page of the product if it is an internet-based product, and there's nothing, no functionality behind it. It's just a product which talks about the product, what benefits it has, what users can do with it, and so on. And when the customers are like this product and they have a button called more, or something more that they want to see about the product, when they click that button, it just says that sorry, we haven't got the product ready yet, and we are working on it, or something like that. And that number of people who click on that more will give you a feeling of how many people are really showing more interest in this particular product. The second technique is crowdfunding. So there are sites where you can publish the idea of a product, and people may say that they are willing to fund it. So using the money that people are ready to invest in your product, you take that money and you build the product. And we will see some examples of that in the next topic called MVP. So the more the people who are willing to invest in this product, it shows that it has got value, and that's a way of qualitative testing as quantitative testing. The third technique, when the product is already there, but you want to introduce a new feature, and you are not sure whether this is an important thing for the customers or not. There is something called A/B testing or a split testing. So let's say there are 100 people who use this particular software. You take, say, 50% of the people, and only for 50% of those users who visit your website or visit the product, you show them the new feature. For the rest 50, you don't. And for that, or it could be 50%, it could be 20%. You can decide on the percentage. So among those who got exposed to the features, how many continue to use that feature, or how many like this feature? So based on that, you can say that, yeah, this feature makes sense or doesn't make sense. And if it makes sense, then you open it up for the entire 100%. It doesn't make sense, then you remove this feature from the product. And when you have already a pre-selected set of customers who have agreed to work with you, then those are the people who can be also asked about this product. You can show a demonstration, you can show a prototype, and find out how many among the selected customers. So if it is a B2C product, then you have hundreds of people, and among those 100, how many of them are showing interest in the product that you have developed. So that could be another way of quantitative testing. Next, so there are 4 types of testing we said, or risks we said. First is the value risk, which we have already discussed. Next will be usability risk. Then third will be feasibility risk, and fourth is the business viability risk. Coming to usability testing, or usability, whether this is usable or not, when you have got the product prototype or something ready, then you can go for this kind of testing. So get the sample users to test, tell them it is just a prototype of an early product idea, and request for honest feedback. See if they can tell from the landing page what the product is meant for. So the first page of the product should be so clear that it should give a clear message, or should communicate very clearly what this product is for what purpose can you use this product. And if that itself is not clear, then the further things will become even more difficult. Observe if users can easily do their tasks. So while the users are using it, you observe how they're using the product. Are they struggling to use it? Are they finding it difficult to identify the menu option to do a particular activity? So you typically give them a task or set of tasks to be performed, and the user goes through this product to see whether he or she is able to perform those tasks. So by observing how he is using this product, how difficult he is finding to use the product, is he struggling or not, we can get an idea about the usability of the product. Identify places where the model presented by the software does not match with how the user is thinking. So this same thing as this, re-emphasizing the previous point. So if the software is designed in a particular way, it has got a particular UI, which does not match with the way the user is conceiving the product, thinking about the product. This is how it should be, that he is expecting a particular menu option to do a particular activity or a task, but he's seeing something else. So he's struggling. He's trying to use some other button, whichever is available, and trying to solve this problem. So if he's struggling and you are seeing that he's clicking on a button which should not have been clicked for doing the particular task, that means he has not understood the software model, the design model, the way we have designed it is not clear to him. So that's called the design model, which is not matching with his mental model. So when there is a mismatch, then there is something wrong with the way we have designed it. So this is a point we need to correct in our next release or next version. So we can ask, like, why did you click on this button, for example? Okay, if you're not sure why he did it. Okay, so to get more clarity. And then finally, once the user has gone through the entire product or this kind of task that you have asked him to perform, then you can ask some final questions like, which features did you like, and how easy was the product, and how likely are you to buy this product. So if it's really valuable, then he will say yes, it's a good thing. And so anyway, so these are some of the things that you can ask to get a final answer. But the real thing is by observing, and of course a few things like which features you like. This I'm not sure whether you'll get a clear answer. Whether if you ask how likely you are to buy this product, whether it will be an honest answer or not is doubtful. Let's go ahead. As the next one is testing the feasibility of the product. Is it technically feasible or not? We may have a great idea, but how feasible it is right now with available technology to put it into production. So this is needed when we use new technologies like AI, ML, robotics, augmented reality, and so on. And getting the engineer's perspective earlier also tends to improve the solution itself, and it's critical for shared learning. So this is where I know that the team of three types of people: one, the product manager, the designer, and the engineer, working together as a team, working together to understand the customer's needs, working together, observing how the users are using this product. All these are critical because each one comes with a different perspective. An engineer can also give the perspective of what are the different ways of implementing it, or what are the ways in which we can solution it. Okay, so getting the perspective of the engineer at this stage will prove critical in terms of assessing the technical feasibility of the solution. And some examples are: there can be multiple ways to solve a problem of preventing leakage of confidential company data. For example, we can check when the data is being sent out before it goes out of the company's infrastructure. So if you do that, then it is high on safety, but it's low on performance because every data that is being sent will have to be checked. And it can be low on deployment because every PC, every laptop will have to be loaded with some kind of a monitoring software. The second option could be check after data is sent out. This is with the assumption that most of our people are honest and they will not be doing it, but you still want to do an audit later on. So this is low on safety because if there are any malicious users, employees, then you will be losing certain critical data, but it is high on performance and high on deployment. So depending on the situation, depending on the scenario, depending on the company's context, so one of these solutions will be better than the other. So let the business decide which is a better solution. So this is the technical feasibility part of it. Okay. Then coming to testing the business viability. So here there are many aspects you can see that we have to test. We have to check the risk against each of these. There could be a marketing risk, there could be a selling ability risk, customer service risk, whether we're capable of providing the kind of customer support that is required, finance risk, do we have enough funds, do we have a good business model, and finally, the legal risk. Are we impinging on any particular intellectual property rights, or are we violating any regulations that may be there? So these are some of the risks we need to assess before we actually go into detailed product development. Let's look at some of these. So in the marketing risk, your product must, especially this is true for large companies, the branding risk. So your product must fit within the brand image promise of the company's other offerings. So for example, HSBC is a very popular multinational bank based in Hong Kong and branches all over the world. So they want to develop a product called Pay Me. It is a mobile app which helps younger generation people. So when they go for a party together, and one of them pays the money for the pays the bill, and this needs to be shared with the other people who are in the party. This app helps them to sort of share the money or pay the money to the person who paid the bill. So it was a mobile app which was developed by HSBC, and it also has a payment banking facility in that built into that. So here, what was the situation was, it is known for a high quality customer service, and they plan to introduce a mobile app which should have highest quality of user experience, performance, and security, because it's banking application, and it cannot afford to have a login feature where the user logs in with Facebook user ID password or Google user ID password, even though it may be good enough. So even if the login feature, you'll see that many of the mobile apps don't have their own login feature. They don't store user ID password. Rather, they depend on a third party like Google, Facebook, etc. Right, which is also good enough. But when you're talking about a banking application, the perception the users may have is that the bank is depending on some third party to verify the authenticity of the user. So this may not go well with the audience that we are having. The perception created will be that the bank is compromising the security by depending on external entities. So this will impinge on the brand image. Okay, so this may not be a good option when you are designing a solution, Pay Me app solution. You have to consider marketing risk. So if you do it this way, it will be hard for the company. It will impact its image. So you cannot have that kind of a feature. Another example, which I personally came to know from one of my friends who was working in IBM many years back. Long back, IBM was selling mainframes in India, and they continue to do so. But at that time, there was a company in Delhi which was using this IBM mainframe for a very critical application. I forget whether it was RBI or some other organization, but it was being used for a mission critical application. So, and IBM is known for very reliable products and very high customer service. They're known for it. So once this customer had a problem and the mainframe had crashed, in order to solve this problem, they flew an engineer all the way from Bombay to Delhi with this very small part. The part may have costed maybe 100 rupees or even less, but it was so critical for repairing that product. They, instead of couriering or sending it by post, they actually flew a person by flight immediately with that part so that he can go there and fix it immediately. It was so mission critical that you cannot afford a downtime. So that was the kind of customer service IBM provides. Okay. So if this new product idea is not backed up by a solid customer support plan, it will not fit in the brand promise of IBM. So any other product they want to create, they need to factor in this aspect of high customer service into their product, and only then they will be able to market that product. Otherwise, this will not fit into the overall image of the organization. Now, coming to sales part, do the sales people or the channel have the skills to sell the product? That is very important. You may have a great product, but if the sales people do not have sufficient knowledge, sufficient technical knowledge, or sufficient training, or sufficient background to sell the product, then how are we going to really sell it to the various customers, right? So our salespeople, for example, may be familiar with selling business-oriented products like payroll, customer support, or expense process management, and so on. So they may be familiar with design or selling these products because that is what the company was selling earlier. But now if you are introducing a very high-tech product which uses AI and analyzes videos of patients who have autism, for example, this is done in a product called Cognable. It analyzes the video of the child, and based on the video and the behavior pattern of the child, they can detect whether this child has got autism or not. And then it can even give certain recommendations as to how to handle this child and how to treat this child. So this is a very high-tech solution. It's a medical product. It comes in a AI technology and so on. No, our salespeople are not accustomed to selling this product. They are not aware of this technology at all, and it's a completely new kind of product. So the risk is to assess whether our people, current salespeople, are they equipped to do the selling of such a product. Okay, so that needs to be addressed. And the other situation could be if we are used to sell a B2C product via channel partners, and now we are planning to do the direct sales because it's a B2B product, then our salespeople may not be able to handle this. Okay, so we are not used to the B2B, we are only used to B2C via channel. So many companies sell their product to channel partners, like I think Microsoft and other laptop vendors. They have channel partners. And coming to customer service, are we equipped to do the proper customer service? Do we need a high-touch customer service or a low-touch customer service? If a product is a complicated product, then we need a very high-touch customer service. We need to handhold the customers. For example, open API for banks. It's a very sensitive set of APIs which gives access to the banking information or account information. And there are APIs being developed by each bank. But if you look at Twilio, it offers a very simple API which any programmer can use without much difficulty. It has APIs like dial a number, play a message, voice message, and disconnect the call and so on. So depending on what your product is, you may need a high-touch customer service or low-touch customer service. And you need to see whether your company is equipped for that or can you put it in place. Okay. Then comes the finance risk. The cost to produce, market, and sell your product must be sufficiently less than the revenue your product generates. What is the return on investment? How long is the break-even period? Is it going to take 5 years? Is it going to take 2 years? Is it going to take 10 years? We don't know. So that those calculations have to be done. And during the time that till the time you reach break-even, you need sufficient financing to sort of sustain your business, right? So let's say you are going to spend 100 units of money on building, marketing, and selling a product, and the recurring operational costs are negligible. This is hypothetical. So let's say you're going to spend 100 to build the product, and the cost of the product is 1, and the sales per month is 2 copies. It will take 4 years to recover the cost. Okay, so the break-even period is 4 years. And the return on investment in 10 years, if you keep selling the product for 10 years, the return on investment is 240 minus 100. 240 is the revenue you will get in 10 years, and 100 is the, assuming there's no recurring cost, which is very, very hypothetical, but just for the sake of argument. So 240 is the revenue, 100 is the cost, and the return is on investment is 140. So this kind of financial analysis also needs to be done before we venture into the product development. Some products may be very expensive to develop and may take a long time to recover the cost, and some may be less expensive and probably you can recover the cost very quickly. Some may be high volume, some may be low volume, so on and so forth. Okay. Next comes the legal risk. What are the legal issues that we need to consider? Are there any privacy concerns, compliance concerns, intellectual property violations, or competitive issues? Okay, so these are some of the things that need to be looked at. So in case of privacy and compliance, European Union data should be stored in European Union data centers only. So this is one of the compliance that we need to adhere to. Then in the case of healthcare, there is a HIPAA regulation which talks about the the privacy of health records and related data. In the case of finance, there is a SOX compliance, Sarbanes-Oxley Act in the US after the Lehman Brothers, meltdown, and the GDPR, it talks about again the personal information sharing, which is now seen in every website, gathering of personal information. Then comes the question of intellectual property. Are we using any intellectual property without purchasing them? For example, there have been several IP cases in the court between Samsung, Nokia, Apple, and so on. Open source software license usage. There are different kinds of licenses for using open source license. Some you can use freely, but some you cannot sort of sell it. When you modify the particular open source software, you need to give it back as an open source. So there are a lot of regulations like that. So you need to be cognizant of those and make sure that you don't violate any of those. Samsung versus iPhone, user experience design, IP issue, yes, that is true. And another classic example is Apple Maps. They insisted not to use Google Map for a very long time. So these are some of the business risks. So there are several aspects in business which we need to be cognizant of, and the bigger the company, the more the time and effort that is being spent on these kind of issues, because your image is at stake. So now let's do a small exercise. Okay, I want you to identify. I want you to wear the cap of a consultant or a mentor, and identify what are the type of risks, the prominent risk. Among the four risks we have, number one is a value risk, then usability risk, the feasibility risk, and the business viability risk. Okay, so we have to identify which are the prominent risks in this particular product. So here are my thoughts. First of all, whether it's feasible or not, or what Varnab says, quantifying the efficacy of it. So whether it's really going to work, we don't know. And second, the marketing risk or the acceptance risk, as some people have already said. Probably we need to get some people to endorse this product to say, yeah, it's indeed. Once it is proven that it's effective, you still need to market it as it is to be acceptable to the users. Now let's look one more example. So this is a software which creates ads which can be put on the paper, published in the newspaper or any print media. So you need to give to this product, to this software, a description of the product, its value, what value it is providing to its customers, and who are the target market. Based on that, it will create a ad something like this, and then you can insert this ad in a newspaper. So just to clarify one point on usability, usability is more about ease of use. But in the previous example, we are saying people may not use this product because of their beliefs. That's not a usability risk. It's a marketing risk, or the risk that it will not be acceptable to the market. You may not be able to sell it, okay? Or it could be a financial risk. Repetition of ideas and taglines, which can create value depletion. Okay, so we are making an assumption that it will repeat. Okay, user base of reading newspapers may be shrinking, diminishing. Okay, right. So it could be a marketing risk or a finance risk. Not able to read the text on ad and long text too. Okay, so here are my thoughts. First of all, whether it's feasible or not to produce such a software. And marketing risk, sign up high profile. So it could be a marketing risk. People may or may not accept it, like the concerns that people have expressed about its repetition and quality risk, type of material used, and value risk, not possible to attract. In case we find it's feasible and is producing a good ad, then the question comes of acceptability. And that's where we probably need some solution to market it. So one possible way is to sign up high profile pilot customers like Nike, for example. If Nike says, yeah, we are using your product for creating ads, then most other people also will start buying it. So here is what I think. There could be a value risk whether the Kirana stores and the customers are really willing to use this product. Okay, are they convinced about this, or does it provide significant value or compelling value or not? and we have to speak to at least a good number of stores and customers to assess. And it is usability, because it's going to be used by lay people like Kirana store people and general public. It has to be extremely user friendly. So the usability risk is also there. The next topic is about MVP, minimum viable product. So in the life cycle of the product, we have identified an opportunity. We have assessed the opportunity, whether it's having value or not, by talking to customers, asking the right questions. We have done the risk analysis, and now we want to go ahead. We have collected the product features, and we have done the business planning, thought about how to market it and everything, and we created a story map. And from the story map, we identified the most important features that are there, and from that we have identified the minimum set of features that need to be there in your first release, and test this product with a set of customers who can say, who can tell you whether it is making sense or not, right? So we are at that stage, and we are at this is the place where we need to create a minimum viable product to find out whether it's making sense to go ahead or not. Okay, to validate the product idea. So let's talk about how do we create a minimum viable product. So first of all, what is a minimum viable product? What are the different types of minimum viable product, and when to use which kind of minimum viable product? This is the agenda for this particular topic. So product is a risky business. We should not wait to develop the entire product to launch it. We should rather develop a product which is just enough functionality for users to use it meaningfully and derive significant value from it. So it should not be too small, not too big. It should be something which will which will bring in compelling value to the customer, but at the same time, not everything that you can imagine. Okay? So that you don't invest too much of time, effort, money into that product, because you still have to validate it. So let's look at some definitions of MVP. There are a couple of very good definitions. So here is one definition, you can read it. One of the purpose of creating a minimum viable product is to validate our assumptions, validate our hypothesis. We are thinking that, we are assuming that this product will be of value and it will be have business sense and all that. So one of the purpose of MVP is to validate our assumptions. Okay, so that's what is conveyed here in the second definition. So this we have seen in the earlier, that how the product life cycle is. There is a loop: build, measure, and learn. So you build a product based on certain hypothesis, then you measure its performance in the market, performance in the eyes of the users, and then you learn certain things, that what is working, what is not working, what the users are saying. You get some feedback, and then you try to modify the product concept and create a new MVP. And then again, you measure and test whether it's working or not. So this is that loop that we are talking about. So Sandeep says the story map technique we explored earlier, is that technique specifically for MVP. So story map is a way to gather and document the various features. We saw that in the story map, we can also create different layers. What do you want it to be in the first release? What are the most critical features? Then what is there in the second release? So then you can layer or stratify the features in the story map also. So it can be used for identifying the features of the MVP also. But MVP is not necessarily a actual product, as we will see. An MVP can also be a prototype. An MVP can also be like we saw the landing page, just to test whether there is enough people interested in it. So is this product attractive enough? Okay. So yes, we need to identify those features, but it's not necessary that we develop all the features. So this is the goal of the goal of MVP, is to test the fundamental business hypothesis. Is this the need? Meaning, does it have value? Is there enough value? Okay, it may have value, but it may not have enough value. And does it make business sense? Because ultimately we have to survive, right? Is MVP used by the customers or just acceptance tested by the client? So just hold on to your thought for a minute, for a few minutes. We're going to see the different MVPs, and then probably your answer, you'll get an answer from that. Okay. So as I said, MVP is not always a product. It can be a simple product, or it can even be a prototype, or it can even be a video, and anything that allows us to test the value. Okay. So let's see some different types of MVPs. First MVP is the Facebook MVP. So what did Facebook do when it wanted to test whether this product, whatever they're trying to build at that time, is it useful or not? They built a very simple platform. It connected students from the same class, okay, by allowing them to post messages to shared boards. By introducing this Facebook to a super narrow segment of the market, he managed to validate this idea. So he developed a very simple product just to see whether there's enough pull, enough demand for this product. So in the case of a Facebook, it was a simple platform. Okay. Similarly, in case of Uber, they launched Uber with a very simple concept, and the app worked on iPhones, or even using SMS. You can book a cab, and it was available only in one city. Okay. But this is enough to prove the idea is worthwhile. Okay, and people are willing to sort of do a ride, ride sharing using this particular concept. So coming to another example of MVP, what did Dropbox do? Any idea? They did not develop a product at all. They just developed a simple video clip, which they showed it to several people, and I think they posted it on a website. And when people saw this video, they were so hooked on to it. They liked it so much that 75,000 people were waiting for a beta invite. Okay, so it need not be a product at all, like what Facebook did and what Uber did. Right. Another MVP can be like this is a company called Angel List. They are into connecting the startups to investors. So every startup needs, I mean, not every, but most startups will need some investor who can put some money into that startup. So when a startup is looking for investors, AngelList is able to connect them to the right investors who are likely to fund that program or fund that venture. And so they help the investors as well as the startups. So this was their plan, and they had a vast directory of startups and investors, and they wanted to use an intelligent matchmaking algorithm and search functionality. Okay, this is what they wanted to do it. But what they did to start with was these two people were doing manual email introductions between the startup and the investors using their broad network of contacts. They already had a lot of contacts with the startups and the investors. And instead of putting in place an intelligent algorithm, they did it manually. So they knew that, okay, for this startup, these were the 5 investors who may be interested. So they introduced the startup to the investor through email, a very simple concept. And as it started working better and better, then they started creating a website where you can have, you can pitch a product. As a startup, you can pitch a concept, and as a investor, you can join this like a investor who's willing to invest. So these two lists keep growing, and using an intelligent algorithm, you can match the investor to the startup, and they can start talking to each other. Okay, so they did all manually initially, till such time they found that indeed there is a good market for this kind of a offering. Then comes a tool called Buffer. The Buffer is a tool that allows scheduling your tweets. So you use a tweet to send a small message in that Twitter. Now, typically you just type that message and it gets published immediately. But sometimes you want to time it. You want to send a message at 7 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So you can sort of keep scheduling these messages at consistent intervals. And that was one of the requirements they thought will be useful to many people, or at least some people. So that was the idea. It was a tool to schedule the tweets, and the founder did something like Dropbox. So he didn't create a full product. Instead, he created a landing page. Okay, so this looks something like this. So when the user goes to the landing page, he will see this kind of a screen which says tweet more consistently with buffer. So choose the times to tweet, at what time you want to tweet, and add the tweets to the buffer. So it will sit in the buffer, and when the time comes, it will actually send out that message to the Twitter. So buffer does the rest and relax. So these were the three things. And now there is a button called plan and pricing. So if people are really, they like this concept very much, they would have clicked on this button, plan and pricing. So when they clicked on this, they will only see that you caught us before we are ready. That means the product is still not ready. They're still working on it. Okay. So this is what they see. But what this helped Buffer was to see how many people are clicking on this, how many people visited this page, and how many of them actually clicked on this. So this gave them an idea whether there's enough demand for this product or not. So this is a kind of a testing the value for this product using a minimum viable product, and which is not really a product. It is just a landing page. It's also called a fake door. The door opens, but when you open the door, you don't get this get inside the house. You just get a message. Now let's look at Airbnb MVP. You all know Airbnb, which offers instead of staying in the hotel, you can stay in a room in a house, somebody's house. Okay. So in 2007, there was a great design conference in San Francisco, and hotels were overbooked. So they got an idea that why don't we rent our own house for those people who are finding it difficult to book a hotel. So they just quickly put together a simple website to advertise that their house was available for rent and people could stay in their house if they want. And immediately they got 3 guests who were willing to come and pay money and stay in their house. So this supported the market insight that potential customers would be willing to pay to stay at someone else's home rather than in a hotel. This was that quick and simple website they put together for that particular conference. And probably they had a link from the conference website to their website, so that people are looking for accommodation will be directed to their website where they can actually book the rooms. So very simple concept without any fancy features that Airbnb has today. So this helped them to test their idea. Another company called Artwork. Now this one was they wanted to develop a product which will answer questions like, what is a good place to have Italian food? So let's say you go to Delhi, let's say you're in Connaught Place and you're looking for Italian food. So you have an app in which you type, okay, what's a good place to have Italian food, and it will, using some artificial intelligence and machine learning tools, it will suggest the best place for you. But without developing this product, they developed only the front end, in which they can type the question like a chat box. But when the message reaches the back end, there were human beings sitting there. They were looking at the chat messages, and they knew the place in and out. They knew Connaught Place, they knew Noida, they knew Gurgaon very well. So depending on from where this message is coming, they, based on their own experience and knowledge, they used to answer back. So the user will think that the tool is answering, but actually a human being sitting at the back is answering that question. So this was just to test the demand. Are people willing to use this particular app or not? Do they find a value in it? And only when they found value, they automated it and they built the backend system, right? So this is another kind of way of testing your MVP. So this was essentially done manually. Only the front end was created. So it is similar to the manual work done by the AngelList, company, this company. So they did the work manually, and later only they introduced the website. Then comes that the crowdfunding example. So this is an example of the virtual reality product developed by this company, and You have all the data here. So they campaigned, put a campaign, a Kickstarter campaign, and they said we are going to develop this kind of product. Those who are interested can fund this sort of venture, and they got a lot of money to actually develop it. So instead of they putting their own money, they will get money from others. Another example of a crowdfunding MVP. So there is a pop-up, kind of a socket here to keep your cables wound up neatly so that it doesn't get messed up. So they want to develop this product, and they used crowdfunding, the website called Campaign, okay, on Kickstarter. Sorry, Kickstarter was the website, crowdfunding website. Okay, so these are the different MVPs we saw. So video we saw in Dropbox, a simple product we saw in Facebook and Uber. Concierge is doing it manually, is what we saw. Airbnb had a very simple website, but they did not have any billing and all this. Not a very full-fledged website, but just to attract the people. So they actually, you can consider as a manual thing, or maybe not a good idea to call that, or you can say a landing page or something. So one of these you can take, and then you have this landing page or a fake door, which is a buffer, and artwork, Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz is a novel, very famous novel written for children. It's about magic, how there's a magical world existing, and by magic you're able to take one person from one place to another place and so on. So it's a kind of a magic for the end user. He just types in a query and he gets an answer as if it's a magic, but actually there are people behind it. So these are my thoughts on which MVP can possibly be used in what situation. But if you have any other thoughts, do let us know. Well, let's do an exercise. Which MVP will be suitable here? Out of these types, which MVP is more suitable in a given situation is the exercise. We saw the online library in the last class, where the students can borrow books and keep reading and then return it, so that they don't have to really buy a book. And we have a tie-up with lots of publishers to publish, to provide those books online. So which kind of MVP you think will be a good idea in this kind of a product? So whenever we have, when we say this is the MVP that we will go for, we should have a justification. There should be a reason behind it, okay? Then the software product finder or advisor. I think we had this case study last time, but did not have time to go through it. The idea here was there are many companies who, this is a hypothesis, right? Many companies were struggling to decide which software to buy for their company. Buy meaning either buy it and install it, or it could be a SaaS application also. So there are many products for, let's say, your business management. It could be Zoho, it could be Freshworks, it could be, your Tally, and so on. So which one should I go for? So this is a confusion in a lot of people's mind, especially the small and medium enterprises. So the idea was to create a website which will provide the information about the top products in different categories, and also there will be an advisor whom you can call and get advice to give advice to which product best suits my scenario. And later on, you can even automate this with AI and ML to give the correct advice to the small and medium enterprise who are trying to buy a product. So what kind of MVP you think will be suitable for this kind of a scenario, for this kind of a product, and why? More importantly, why? So with that, we come to the end of this particular topic on how to create an MVP. And then we move on to the next topic, which is now that we know that this product seems to be of interest, how do we now start building it? You start selling it, see whether there's enough revenue getting generated, enough customers are buying it, then get some feedback, further improve it and innovate things till such time you stabilize a value, a good value for the client. And then of course you'll keep getting more and more feedback and then you even more improve the product. So that's what we are going to see now. How do we, what is this cycle of iteration? Build, measure, learn, and pivot. Pivot means change the product or add new things to the product. How does it look like? Can we look at some examples? So these are the things we will look at: turning ideas into product, seeing how customers respond to that product, meaning how many people use it, what do they say about it, and we can learn what is valuable to the customer, what is not valuable. And based on that, we can decide to continue, meaning persevere to improve the product, or pivot, means completely change the offering because we are not seeing much value for the customer. And hopefully, if time permits, we'll go into look at these case studies and profiles of people who have done it. Let's see how much we can cover. So Eric says growth should be measured by the value it creates, not by the funding, the amount of advertisement, etc. So the company's valuation may be very high because the investors think that the product has great future. They may pump in a lot of money, but that doesn't mean it is really bringing value to the customer, right? So the way to measure the impact of the product is to measure the value it is creating for the customer. Okay, so those are that is the main point. If you really want to be one step ahead of the competition, it is not the valuation of your company, but the value it creates for the customer. So there could be different reasons why your financial valuation is high, because of venture funding, or there is a lack of competition. You are the only person offering, so people will be coming to you. The moment there is a competition, your people may go away, right? So you have to really see whether your product is giving value or not. For example, in an e-commerce business, are e-commerce customers finding it convenient to shop on your website? Are they finding the products they want? Are the products delivered on time? These are all things they are looking at. So if this is not improving, but only people are buying because there's no other choice, it's not really a growth in terms of the company's innovation. Okay, the company's value is providing to the customers. So we need to constantly learn what is valuable. So we saw this cycle earlier during the life cycle stages. So we have an idea, we build the product, then we get this product and we release this product for users, and we keep measuring how many people are using it and what features do they use, like Kaur said, we'll have click stream measurement and all that. And using that data, we learn what is valuable, what is not valuable. We learn about its value also from customer interviews, doing root cause analysis, and then we change the ideas, come with some new ideas, and build the product again or improve the product. So this is the cycle that we have to continue to do. And the most important thing is to keep this cycle time very, very small so that we don't waste too much time in building a very full-fledged product, right? So when you're trying to build, let's say, Bounce, which is a bike renting product, and you will build an app for it, you want to see whether it's going to work or not. The most important feature, the minimum thing that you will build is a feature for booking a ride, unlocking the bike using the OTP, and then ending the ride by pressing a button on the keypad, and then pay for it. Whereas there are other features like giving feedback, and then view the bike model and the year of manufacturing, the frequent user analytics. All this can wait. Of course, you need to have some kind of feedback, so you may or may not have it in the app, but you can always have a call center to collect the feedback. But yes, feedback is important. It was not to mention that feedback is not important, but building a feedback feature in the app may not be that critical, I thought. Now, then measuring comes when you have to measure, identify the right metric that indicates that customers are getting value for the product. Examples of right metrics are number of rides per day in case of Bounce, how many people rented the bike, number of messages per team in case of Slack. So if you want to see the value of Slack, you have to see how many messages are being sent using Slack. in each team, okay, on average. So this is what Eric Ries, that's a person who wrote this book, Lean Startup, says this is called innovation accounting. So this measuring these metrics and accounting for it, meaning is it more, it is high, is what is called innovation accounting, as opposed to financial accounting like profit and loss. It's not the profit and loss that you are looking at when you want to improve the product. You're trying to measure certain critical metrics which helps you to determine whether you are continuously innovating or not. So this is that validated learning based on the metrics. So first thing is we establish a baseline using a real data based on MVP. So you first create an MVP, a simple product, a minimum viable product, and create a baseline. So initially, when you created Bounce, you had 20 rides per day using the MVP, the simple offering that you had. Then set a desired target. So say you want to reach a target of 100 rides in 3 months. Only then you will have a profitable business or a viable business. Okay, is based on certain assumptions. Then you tune the engine. You make optimizations like improve the UI or adjust the price. These are all small improvements, small optimizations that you make, and you measure again to see whether there is any difference. Is this 20 rides per day going up from 20 to 50, 50 to 100, over a period of time? Yeah. Are you seeing an improvement? Because based on these changes is what you need to keep measuring. And then if it is not really making any change, then you need to sort of introspect and see what feature or what offering is not adding value and what offerings really needs to be improved, what feature need to be improved to enhance value. So then you change so you can either change the feature or you can change the target segment. Maybe you're addressing a wrong target segment. So instead of, so these are the changes you can make. Either you can provide a helmet, because if that is what they are, if I'm just going to ride a bike and I don't have a helmet, I'm not allowed to ride, so I don't rent the bike. So I can provide a helmet. Or if the normal users going to the metro are not using it, maybe I can target delivery boys of Swiggy and Zomato. Maybe they'll be interested in renting my bike. So try a different hypothesis, a different assumptions to test to take the product further. So these are the changes you will make. So this is called a pivot. When you make a significant change in the product offering, that is called a pivot. So let's take a look at an example of a company called GrowKit. It was a edtech company, education technology company. This was Farbod Nevi was the founder of this, and he was a very popular and effective teacher. He discovered that a combination of following approaches is needed for effective teaching. So one is teacher-led lecture, second is individual homework, and third is group study. So if you have a combination of all these three, then the learning is more effective. That is what he found. So what he did, step one, this was his MVP, minimum viable product. He used WebEx to teach. This was the teacher-led learning. And he measured the number of customers, number of students who joined, and the number of questions answered. This is really important because you are trying to impart knowledge. And if the people are not able to answer your questions, that means they are not learned much, or your learning is not effective, your teaching is not effective, right? So this is an indicator of how effective the teaching is. This is also an indicator of the value you're creating for the customers. Then he added new ways for students to interact with each other. So apart from teaching using WebEx, he created a website where it's like a social media where students can interact with each other. And he conducted a split test, A/B testing. That means when he introduced this interaction feature, he did not open it up for all the students. Maybe he took it for a certain fraction of the students, maybe 20%, 30% of students were given this interaction facility. And he wanted to find out whether there was any improvement in the behavior in terms of able to answer questions, for example. So he found that he did not really improve much. The learning was not great or greater than what it was before. Okay. And then he allowed lazy registration feature, meaning you don't have to register. You just can join the lectures free. And if you like it, then you can register later. So he added that feature also. But when he conducted this, again a split test, this also did not have any impact on the student learning or student number of customers registering. Then what he did was he thought of all the different things that the student wanted. So one of the things that they wanted was solo learning, that is homework, as well as group learning. But some students wanted solo learning and some wanted group learning. But right now there was no choice of these two. So what he did was he introduced this feature and did A/B testing. It means he provided on his website either you can go for solo learning or you can go for group learning. Earlier, group learning was the only choice. Now he introduced one more choice, and he saw that by giving this choice only to some people, he found that there was a significant increase in the customer behavior, the customer learning, or the learning of the students. Okay, so this pivot of introducing this change of providing a choice of learning mechanisms to the users led to the stabilizing of the product, and now the uptake was more and more students started registering. They had more and more ability to answer questions, and learning was becoming more. So the first iteration was a simple one. He did some tweaking and fine tuning, but it did not work. But then we offered a completely new offering, or a highly enhanced offering, where you have a choice of solo learning versus group learning. He found that the number of customers were more and the learning was also better. So did you have any such product enhancements that you did to sort of check whether you are on the right track or not? And when you did that change, it improved the usage of the product. Do you have any experiences? So prototype can be, just it can be user prototype. I mean, user interface prototype is like there's nothing behind it. It's just a UI prototype with navigation and all that. And it can be used either for usability testing or it can be used as an MVP also. But proof of concept is more a technical validation, whether is it really feasible to develop this product? Do we have the technology? Do we have the technical ability to do it? That is a proof. If we're able to develop that simple product with the technology needed, then we can go ahead. All right. Thank you so much.